Hello and welcome to Politically Black, the Daily Dose. I'm going to get an episode every day, but you're going to get at least 3 episodes per week between now and the actual election. Every Wednesday, you will get an episode that takes a look at where we are in regards to polls, data, and events that are truly shaping the outcome of the 2024 election. And that's what we're giving you today on the very first episode of Politically Black, the Daily Dose. Now, many of you already know that TikTok is on its last leg. It's expected to be gone within 130, as of today, 139 more days. And so for me, I'm going to double down my content creation and posting on the YouTube. Now, I can't lie and tell you that the YouTube algorithm has been kind to me over the months that I have been here and monetized. I've been monetized since February. I've only made $91 since that time, but it doesn't mean that I'm not going to create content. One thing about me is I'm persistent and I am determined. I don't care about likes, clicks, and views. I care about educating and getting the word out and sharing information that I think is important and that I think is valuable. And I do believe that what I'm going to share today will have some value for someone out there. So regardless of what your political leanings are, if you found today's content valuable, let me know in the comments. I really want you to like, share, and subscribe. But also do some commenting, because that tells the YouTube algorithm that what I'm doing is actually perhaps worth seeing, if you think that it is worth seeing. There are a lot of polls out there and a lot of information that's being shared. And I want to start this off by saying what a good friend of mine, Kenny Two Walter Will Walden, always says, is that polls don't vote, people do. So polls are just a predictive measure of where things are, or, maybe even not even saying it's a predictive measure. It's probably better to say that polls are a moment in time, a snapshot of today. It's how you look right now. It shows us how the Harris campaign looks right now and how the Trump campaign looks right now. So we're going to talk about the polls, but I'm also going to give you some other data points that really, to me, kind of shapes and forms where we are today. And then we're going to go to the 270 to win interactive map and talk about what I think would be the outcome of the election if the election was held right now. Also, I'm going to probably talk about in this video some things that I think the campaigns could be doing, or maybe even should be doing, based upon the data, the information that I've had, because this isn't what I thought it would be. I'm not going to lie to you. What I have found in 3 days of deep reading and researching and pulling this together for this very first episode, the expected outcome isn't the outcome that I thought it would be or the outcome that I want. And then I had to spend some time reflecting on, well, why did I think it would be this way? And what can we do to make sure that it is, for me, the way that I want it to be? Make no mistake about it. I'm a boldly blue man. Like, I'm a liberal progressive who is 100% all in for Vice President Kamala Harris being the next president of the United States of America, House Harris 47. But with that being said, just because I want it to be won't make it so. It's going to be the result of a lot of work. And this is a very close contest and a very close race that right now, unfortunately, seems to favor Donald Trump. It shouldn't, but it does. And we'll talk about all of that in this video. So let's go ahead and start off right now in regards to 2 very important polls that came out over the weekend between Friday and then today. We're going to talk about those right now, starting off with the ABC Ipsos poll, which has been all the news, that give a national lead to Vice President Harris with 48% of the vote, Donald Trump getting 45% of the vote. This poll is making a lot of news, a lot of airwaves, but I want to say, who didn't expect this outcome? No one, I don't think, expects Vice President Harris to lose the popular vote. The majority of Americans in this country are in favor of the policies that a Democratic candidate brings to the table. It doesn't matter if that candidate is Vice President Harris or Joe Biden. I have very little doubt that Joe Biden, too, would have won the national vote. And I think that everyone would, for the most part, agree with that. We have only had one Republican candidate win the popular vote in this country, as well as the Electoral College, and that was George W. Bush on the second time that he ran. Other than that, no other president in the 21st century, from 2000 until now, in the 24 years that we have been in this century, have been able to garner the popular vote. It just hasn't happened. Hillary Clinton won the popular vote. Joseph Robinette, Bill Clinton, Hillary Clinton, Joseph Robinette Biden, and President Barack Hussein Obama all won the popular vote. It is the Electoral College that poses and presents the greatest challenge. Whether or not we should have a Electoral College is something that we'll talk about in an upcoming episode. The poll shows that Harris is leading in the popular vote, but is she leading in the Electoral College? That is what I wanted to know and what I researched and dug deep into. For the state-by-state look in the battleground states of who's leading, we're going to start off with what most people kind of look at right now, which is 538, which takes a variety of polling averages, put them together, and give you a result. I also use 538. I'm going to use 538 as a part of helping me identify where I'm going to put the votes on the electoral map that we're going to use for 270 to win. But I didn't just use 538. Now, 538 currently has Harris up in Wisconsin by 3.2%, Harris up in Michigan by 2.4%, Harris up in Pennsylvania by 1.2%, Harris up in Nevada by less than 1%, Harris up in Georgia by less than 1%, Harris up in Arizona by less than 1%, and then Trump up in North Carolina by less than 1%. It's the less than 1% for Harris in the states of Nevada, Georgia, and Arizona that give me concern. And we'll talk about why they give me concern when we go to identifying the Electoral College votes and how I think they're likely to play out. But I didn't just look at 538 because I really wanted to make an informed decision as to how I would see this play out. I also went to a brand new Morning Consult Bloomberg News poll. I feel as though this poll is, for the most part, very fair and gives really good data and insight. Now, I really also like the methodology that they use, and we'll talk about the methodology also in the video. Now, this poll, the Bloomberg Morning Consult poll, gives VP Harris a lead in Wisconsin that is sizable. 53% Harris, 44% Trump. It also gives a nice sizable, that is the biggest lead that we give to Harris in the state of Wisconsin. Now, in the state of Nevada is where they give Harris the next sizable lead, but it is not outside the margin of error just yet, but it's a lead in the state of Nevada of 50 to 46, giving her a +4 lead. Then from there we go to Georgia and Pennsylvania, both of those states being at a +3 for Harris. Harris at 51%, Trump 48% in Pennsylvania, and then Harris at 50% in Georgia, Trump at 47%. And then from there we go to the state of Michigan, which gives Harris 49%, Trump at 47% +2, and then Arizona being statistically tied, 48 Harris, 48 Trump. Now in North Carolina, the Morning Consult Bloomberg poll also gives a tie score, 49% Harris, 49% Trump. But again, previously the 538 poll showed that Trump was up there, but up by less than 1%. I think all of this is pretty good and a pretty good measure of kind of where we stand in the battlegrounds. But I don't think that is enough to make an informed decision about how this would play out if this election was held today. In regards to the methodology of the Bloomberg Morning Consult poll, they surveyed a total of almost 5,000 voters in 7 battleground states. They did 805 in Arizona, 801 in Georgia, 702 in Michigan, 450 in Nevada, 700 in North Carolina, 803 in Pennsylvania, and 701 in Wisconsin. Now, the surveys were conducted online from August 23rd to August 27th, and the aggregated data across the 7 swing states were weighted to approximate a target sample of swing state registered voters based on gender, age, race, ethnicity, marital status, home ownership, 2020 presidential vote, and state. State level data was also weighted to approximate a target sample of registered voters state based on gender, age, race, ethnicity, marital status, home ownership, and also the 2020 presidential vote. The statistical margin of error is plus or minus 1 percentage point across the 7 states, 3 percentage points in Arizona, Georgia, and in Nevada. I think it's pretty solid. I like it when I look at how that breaks down. And again, this is just a sample, a snapshot of where we are today. And where are we today? Well, now it's time to face everything head on and take a look at the actual 270 to win map. So here we are in the 278 to win, and you too can go into this website to create your own interactive map. I love the website. I think that it is great to play around with, especially as new data comes in and new data becomes available. So you will see that in my particular map, there are some states that are blank, that are not battleground states in most people's opinion, and they really aren't. But I want to address them because there are a lot of people online saying that these states are flippable. And I think every state is flippable if the time is there and the work is put in. And I'm very thankful to see Vice President Harris putting in a lot of work in these states, creating a ground game that I think will be really good to build infrastructure over time, because you don't flip a state in one election cycle. And I hate to say it, you definitely don't flip a state in 60 days. But what you can do is you put in the work and you start the process, and then you flip that state within the next couple of election cycles. There is absolute hope and promise that Florida is going to flip back to blue, and that Texas one day will also become blue. And when that happens, it really will be over. Republican Party. But this flipping will not happen just yet. We're going to start with Texas because of all the states on the board. The state of Texas has the largest percent where Donald Trump is currently leading. In the state of Texas, Trump is up by more than 6%. Highly unlikely that this state is going to flip or move far enough to the left for VP Harris to be able to receive those 40 electoral votes. I hate to say it, but Texas, although it leans Republican, is a pretty safe bet for Donald Trump, despite all the work that's going in there. And if they can't close the margin more than 6%, I cannot say that Colin Allred will be able to defeat Ted Cruz for that desperately needed Senate seat. Now, in addition to the state of Texas having the plus 6%, I also have to go over to the state of Florida. And in the case of Florida, although many people want to see this state be blue also, and it went blue twice for President Barack Hussein Obama, I cannot say with any level of certainty that this state is going to go blue for Vice President Harris and that she would have a chance to receive those desperately needed 30 electoral votes. Now, with that tilt, I have to say Florida is leaning red, and it's very likely to go 30 electoral points to Donald Trump. Now, from there, I think it's pretty safe to continue on the likely to go red states. And I'm going to also have to give Donald Trump the state of North Carolina and the state's 16 electoral votes. I know that it is in play, and I do believe that it's in play. And I hope that Vice President Harris's campaign continues to pour money into North Carolina and continues to do the trips and do the visits and continue the ground game. And we're going to talk about how much money has been spent there and is being planned to spend there, and how many boots they have on the ground, because that makes a difference. We're going to talk about that after this predictive map is complete. But as of right now, with them still being up in the Ipsos poll, in the 538 average that Trump is up, I'm going to give this state to Trump. Again, a lot can happen between now and election day to shift it and turn the tide. One thing that definitely works in VP Harris's favor in the state of North Carolina is the awful gubernatorial candidate that they have on the ballot who's running as a Republican. He is getting blown out of the water, rightfully so, by his Democratic challenger. And hopefully that's going to drive sentiment for a down ballot vote. But that is never guaranteed. And in my opinion, for the state of North Carolina, it's very unlikely to happen. Now, with that being said, I have to continue over. I'm going to go up Virginia. And in the state of Virginia, VP Harris is up. But what's disappointing to me and a little bit surprising is that it's not by much. VP Harris in the state of Virginia is only up by 2.3%. And that's based upon the average of three polls. Like, three polls were used to calculate that data, but it's still a far smaller margin than what Biden won, as well as, of course, Hillary Clinton. And again, her vice president at the time, Tim Kaine, was from the state. But I hate to even consider the thought that Virginia is a swing state and is in play. But the reality is, it is. Glenn Youngkin is the governor, and he is a Republican. And anytime you have a Republican leading a state, winning state office, handily winning state office, this is indeed a state that is in play. Although it has traditionally gone Democratic and voted for the Democratic candidate, it is in play. They have a Republican governor, and they very well, those same exact numbers could come out in a statewide election and make the state a red state and give these desperately needed 13 electoral votes to Trump. But as of right now, with a 2.3% lead in the state, I'm giving those 13 electoral votes to Vice President Harris. And now, of course, to my current state, my home state of Georgia. Georgia is definitely in play. According to recent polls, Vice President Harris is leading in this state, and I absolutely believe that she is. The work being done in this state is tremendous. The momentum is strong, and I firmly believe that Vice President Harris has a very strong chance to win this state. But as of today, right now, I cannot say with certainty that she is going to, based upon the trajectory of voters in the state of Georgia. Georgia has gone for the Republican candidate in every election during the 21st century, every single one. Georgia did not go blue for President Barack Hussein Obama when states like Indiana and Ohio did. I cannot say that they're going to, on a second time around, vote for the Democratic candidate. President Biden won the state by 11,780 votes. That was the number, 11,780. I do not know that Vice President Harris will lead this state in November. I hope that she does. But as of today, I'm not giving her these 16 electoral votes. I'm giving them to Trump. And I'm doing that based upon those recent statewide elections where Stacey Abrams ran a very strong campaign, very organized, if a little bit later than what I would have wanted her to start, but still very strong. And she lost to incumbent Brian Kemp, who beat her in 2018. A lot changed between 2018 and 2022. There was a massive amount of new voters on the roll. There was a huge turnout in areas that would have been advantageous to Stacey Abrams, and she still lost the election. With that being said, I cannot say again with any certainty that we should not expect for the Republican challenge to do just as well as what Brian Kemp did. And this is my rationale for giving the state of Georgia as of today to Donald Trump. It is my hope, it is my prayer, it is my sincerest desire that we will not say the same thing at the beginning of October. But for right now, in this first week of September, I've got to give it to Don John. From there, all right, let's finish up the Sun Belt with Arizona and Nevada. Now, here's one I'm going to do a little bit different because some polls show a lead for Donald Trump in the state of Nevada, in our battle-born state. But, I'm not doing that. I'm going to give this state to Vice President Harris and give her their 6 electoral votes. Now, I'm giving them to Vice President Harris based on the fact that she does indeed lead this state by 2 polls, like 2 sources I'm looking at. I'm looking at the website Race to the White House as well as 538. Race to the White House has Harris leading with just over 1%, whereas 538 has her leading by less than 1%, but still both of them give her the lead. This comes from a total of 21 polls, and traditionally, Nevada goes the way of New Mexico, and Harris is solidly leading in the state of New Mexico. Now, I'm not saying that is scientifically the way it goes, but typically these 2 states, Nevada and Mexico, vote together, and that's like how they've always done. And Nevada is a very fair and balanced state in that some years they go for the Republican candidate and some years they go for the Democratic candidate. Some years they pick the right president and some years they pick the person who didn't win president. But it's a very fair state. Leave that Nevada will go for Vice President Harris, but by a slim margin. What's also bolstering, I think, Vice President Harris's performance in the battle-born state is the strong performance of incumbent Senator Jackie Rosen. She's doing very well. She's running a very good, clean campaign, as Jackie always does. And I firmly believe that Senator Rosen's performance will benefit Vice President Harris in this state. And then we go to Arizona, where there are people who really do want Arizona and think that Arizona is going to go blue. To be honest, I think that when all is said and done, Arizona is going to go blue, and these 11 electoral votes will indeed go towards Vice President Harris. But as of today, I am not that confident in giving those votes to her. So I'm going to give those votes to Donald Trump. Now, why am I doing that? Now, this is what the data says. The data says both race to the White House as well as 538. It is a dead tie. Race to the White House gives it 47% Harris, 47% Trump. 538 gives it 45% Harris, 45% Trump. This comes out of 27 polls. When you have a statistical tie like what we have in this case, I think that it is appropriate to go and take a look at the historical context. And people, the state of Arizona has voted Republican for every single presidential election except two since 1952. Only Bill Clinton and President Joseph Robinette Biden were able to win these 11 electoral votes. The only Democrats to be able to do so. President Obama could not do it. John Kerry could not do it. Al Gore could not do it. I do believe in my heart that Vice President Harris can and will do it. But as of today, I cannot give her the advantage and give her these votes because it's tied and history is not on her side with the voters in the Grand Canyon state. So this gives us a total of 232 Democrats significantly disadvantaged to the Republicans 262. People, this is a close race. VP Harris has been saying that continuously. This is a close race. It's a close race. We're not safe. We're not comfortable. We're not in the home stretch. And we're not. There's a lot of work to do. We have started strong. We have done a great amount of fundraising. So the money is there. They're spending the money. They're playing the money. The ground game is strong, all of which I'm getting ready to talk about in a moment. But it isn't enough. It isn't going to be enough to seal the deal and get the victory. We have to do more. Every single one of us who wants to see VP Harris sit in that Oval Office and see Democratic policies continue to push this country forward and protect the rights and freedoms of all Americans, red and blue, red state, blue state, all states, we have got to do more because this map in the Electoral College as a whole does not advantage Democrats. It puts us at a significant disadvantage. Now, when you go over to Wisconsin and Michigan, we're going to start with Wisconsin. I am going to have to give those 10 points to VP Harris. With that being said, it closes the gap, but not by a lot. Now, I am very concerned about these two states. That I would give her Wisconsin based on the data more so than Michigan and Pennsylvania, although some polls really show a huge advantage in Michigan. I don't believe it. We know that minority voters are typically not polled at the rate of their white counterparts and peers in most data points, and especially in political races and polls. I don't know the impact of the uncommitted movement and how that is being reflected in current polling. I know what I'm seeing on social media. I know what I am hearing from young and minority voters across the country. And I'm looking carefully at certain people in Michigan, certain content creators and influencers in Michigan. I'm following a lot of Michiganders on social media, and I am seeing what could be a significant impact in the state of Michigan, which was won by very slim margins in 2016 and 2020. Now, I am going to give the state to VP Harris based on the data and continuing the methodology that I've shared throughout the rest of this video. And according to the current data that is available, VP Harris is up in Michigan by 2%. Out of 35 polls, both 538 as well as Race to the White House give the state of Michigan and its 15 electoral votes to VP Harris. But I am saying that I believe that the uncommitted movement in that state could have a significant impact on voter turnout, and that voter turnout not turning out for VP Harris would be detrimental and significantly impact her chances of winning in this state. I do believe that Michigan is the only state where this movement is going to really impact VP Harris negatively and President Trump positively. But again, it's a battleground state where those electoral votes matter. So that puts us, if I'm fair to give that to her, 257 and 262. People, it comes all down to the 19 electoral votes of Pennsylvania. And that's really scary to me because I do not know if VP Harris is going to win this state. I don't know. If I'm being fair, I'm going to give her today those 19 votes because she's leading in the poll. Harris is up by less than 2%, but over 1%. So, she is in the lead currently. This is out of 48 polls for Race to the White House, and it's 1% on 538. But that is a margin of a victory, all of these states within a margin of error, and it's just so small. It's just so small. And we can't forget what happened in 2016. And what happened in 2016 is that polls showed that Secretary of State Hillary Clinton had a 91% chance of winning the presidency, and she lost. Based on the Electoral College people, she lost. We can't be too overly confident, and the margin of victory in the polls for Secretary Clinton exceeds what we're seeing for VP Harris. The same thing could be said in 2020 when the polls also showed a far greater margin of victory at this point for President Biden. That worries me a lot. It does. It gives me some pause. Now, what gives me a little bit more reassurance is the level of work that the Harris campaign is putting into the battleground states. A lot of good data came out, and I want to share that. So we're going to start off by talking about the ground game, because to me that is the most significant thing happening for a campaign. And the ground game that we're seeing right now is really impressive. So when you look at battleground states, the Harris campaign currently, as of July, the end of July, has 48 field offices in the state of Wisconsin to former President Trump's 40. So, but still, 40 is an impressive and significant amount, especially for a campaign that is cash strapped in comparison to its competitor. In the state of Michigan, Vice President Harris has 30 field offices, whereas Donald Trump only has 12. In Georgia, Vice President Harris has 24, and Donald Trump only has 12. In Pennsylvania, the must-win, I think, for both candidates, or for either candidate, Vice President Harris has 36, whereas Donald Trump only has 6. In North Carolina, which really many people didn't consider to be in play until Vice President Harris was on the ticket, well, North Carolina Vice President Harris has 26 field offices to Donald Trump's 1. Now, it's 1 by the end of July. Maybe he's going to open more. I don't know what you can do in 60 days if you open some more offices and hire some more folk, but you, Donald, you probably need to go and do that. Now, in Arizona, Vice President Harris has 13 to former President Trump's 7. In Nevada, Vice President Harris has 12 to former President Donald Trump's 3. And Florida, which I just can't see it working, Vice President Harris has 12 and Donald Trump has 2. Again, I do think that there's a reason to fight for Florida, because you don't flip a state overnight. You don't flip a state in 60 days, but it takes this kind of work, it takes this kind of commitment, and it takes this kind of ground game to eventually get there. So for 2028, absolutely, this could be a state that's strongly in play, that Vice President Harris will have already built the infrastructure, already trained the staff, and already has a team ready to go that will not only benefit her, but will also benefit the Democratic Party in Florida in 2026 when they have statewide elections and they select a brand new governor. So all of that being said, the Harris campaign has a total of 1,500 paid field staffers and 400,000 volunteers across the battlegrounds. And Donald Trump has 300 field staff members that are paid to be there and do their work, to only 14,000 volunteers. Now, this is by the end of July. Perhaps things have changed in August, and maybe the Republican National Committee and the Donald Trump campaigns have really kicked into high gear and done a whole lot more hiring and opened a whole lot more offices. But people, I don't think so. In regards to fundraising, by the end of July, the Harris campaign had raised $310 million throughout that month, with a total cash on hand of $219 million, with a whopping $540 million earned or garnered throughout the 2024 campaign. By comparison, the Trump campaign has raised $139 million in the month of July, far below what VP Harris has raised, and almost less than half, with $151 million cash on hand and a total of $264 million total raised in 2024. This is kind of wild that Vice President Harris's campaign in the month of July raised more money than the entire Trump campaign raised all year. It is wild, and even more so that we're still looking at the close margins that we're looking at. Now, with that being said, how you spend that money matters, and that's a part of the ground game. Also, part of the ground game will be the social media influencers like moi and my friends and people out there doing the work on social media. The DNC happened last month, and they brought in these content creators, and the impact was sizable. That's an upcoming video. But it's also about what you do with the money. And with that, what I just said, no content creator was paid by the DNC to be there, to go, or for any of that. People lost money. I took off a week of work. It was vacation for me. A whole week of work taken off so that I could be at the DNC. So I lost money in that regard. But that's another video. So from there, we go into how they are spending that money, because that also makes a big difference. And we're going to look at ad spend. Now, in the most important battleground state of all, we have Pennsylvania. Today it was revealed that Donald Trump was shutting down his operation in New Hampshire, like letting the whole entire state go, not gonna win it. He's giving up, and he's really doubling down on the strategy of like these key must-win states and running a very lean effort to win them. And he's doubling down and putting all of his eggs in really one path to the White House. And that path is impossible to win without the state of Pennsylvania. Now, in the state of Pennsylvania, Donald Trump is investing $70.6 million. This is current amount of reservations in presidential battleground states. So they're going to be inundated with Trump ads in the state of Pennsylvania, but they're also going to be inundated by Harris ads. And she's also investing $70.8 million. So it's almost an exact spend in the state of Pennsylvania. Now, similar to what's happening in Pennsylvania is what's happening in Georgia, because if Trump wins all the current red states, and he wins Georgia, and he wins Pennsylvania, and he wins North Carolina, he's going to be the president. And so in the state of Georgia, Trump is investing $38.7 million in reservations for ad spending that's already spent. Then VP Harris is doing also 39 million. So 39 million Harris, 38.7 million Trump, very similar. Personally, I hope the Harris campaign does a little bit more spending, a lot more spending in these two states to kind of eclipse the Trump ground game. I know in Georgia, I received a flyer already, this is September. In July and August, I probably get about 2 flyer mailers per week from the Trump campaign. And on television, I'm seeing Trump campaigns continuously being run. I'm also seeing Harris campaigns, but the Trump campaigns so far have been played more. But again, Georgia wasn't as in play for the Democrats as it is now. So hopefully that's going to increase in regards to Harris ads. Now, this is where things take a shift in regards to ad spend when you look at what's happening in the state of Michigan. Donald Trump is investing $6.6 million in Michigan, while VP Harris is investing $55.2 million. In Arizona, Trump is investing $9.9 million, while VP Harris is investing $34.9 million. In the state of Wisconsin, $3.5 million for Trump, $33.1 million for VP Harris. In the state of North Carolina, again, a must-win Trump state, but again, must-win, but a nice win. And for Harris, only a nice win. $2.8 million being spent by Trump, whereas there's $26 million being spent by VP Harris. In Nevada, 6 electoral votes out there. I don't know why you wouldn't fight for them. We have 1.4 million being spent by Trump, while you have 19.5 being spent by Harris. So to me, VP Harris is really investing in that game that does value Pennsylvania and Georgia, but doesn't underestimate the importance of Michigan, Arizona, Wisconsin, North Carolina, and also Nevada. I think it's smart and I think it's wise to do so. You also have the Omaha market. It is one electoral vote that could make the difference, and the Trump campaign has talked about this and they know it, but they're spending no money there, whereas the Harris campaign is investing $7 million. So I think that, again, it's obvious the Harris campaign has a much stronger social media game. The Harris campaign has a much stronger ground game in most of the battleground states, in all the battleground states. And the Harris campaign has the money, cash on hand, and has made the investment in ad spend. So from those perspectives, I feel a little bit more confident in the prediction that I made in giving this to VP Harris, but I'm not comfortable with the results personally. Like, based on my logic, based on my methodology, I can live with what I've shared, but personally, I'm nervous. I'm struggling with this. I don't feel great about this, and there's a whole lot at stake. With that being said, I hope that you will be well, be blessed, and whatever you do, keep pushing forward. I will see you soon.